Hi, everybody. This is Garrett Heater, producing artistic director with Chelsea Opera, and I am joined by Luke Grooms, a former Chelsea Opera performer who is being interviewed by me today. And this is, of course, Hot Tea and High Seas with Chelsea Opera. Luke, you got your tea. All right, great. Let's both take a sip. Here we go.
I do.
Do you know? Can you tell us what hot tea you're drinking today, Luke?
It is can you see, oolong tea. I had to look it up. It's a Chinese tea brought about by oxidizing the things. So they let it out to dry in the sun, basically.
And I'm drinking
very common. It's a black tea, I think.
I'm drinking a Wegmans peppermint tea. There's no Wegmans in Korea, which is where we currently are, right? Yeah.
No, I'm in Taiwan now.
Or Taiwan, excuse me. Yeah. And
yeah, Taiwan.
You don't have a Wegmans there, but we have a Wegmans.
No Wegmans. Yeah, no Wegmans. I wish.
Right. So I got my cat mug. I'm ready to go, and we're just gonna chat today. We're just gonna talk about what you've been up to, how you've been dealing with quarantine, and what you are up to in Taiwan. Very exciting. And let's start off with that. Why are you in Taiwan?
Well, I am currently finishing up my final leg of the world tour of the Phantom of the Opera. I have been in Phantom for, gosh, I was in it almost 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, 2010, so almost 11 years ago. And a few years ago, 2 years ago, they asked me to come back for this world tour. So I've kind of been doing that for the past 2 years. I'm tired, and so I decided not to do. Yeah, I decided not to do the next leg. They're going to China for 17 months beginning in January. And I was like, I don't know about 17 months in China. So this is my last leg here. Yeah. We had our last opening night last night. So, yeah.
And you're performing on stage with the cast in Phantom.
Oh, yeah. I previously did Pianji, the role of the opera singer in the show.
Sure.
This tour was a bit different because they had cast a lot of they cast most of the principals before they even saw any of us. So I'm the Pianji standby. I'm the Pianji understudy, and I'm in the ensemble now. So it's really fun. It's been very low pressure and a lot of fun. I got to see the world. And yeah, like I said, I'm tired. I'm ready for a break. 6 countries so far. Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you that I was obsessed with Phantom. It was one of my first musicals that I just fell in love with, and I used to act out the entire musical in my bedroom, and I played all the characters, including Pianji and Christine and the family.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is, I love being in the show, actually. There's such a sense of community in the show more than almost anywhere I've ever been with, because most of the people who are involved in the show are like me. They've been involved in the show before. And you have people, the thing about Phantom is they're great about rehiring people. And it's such a sense of community because I've been around for so long. You could, in one production you could be a principal, and in the next production you could just be in the ensemble, and it's okay. They do that quite often. And this stop is actually really crazy because we're in an arena, and I've never played an arena before. 6,000 seats.
What is that? Is it just overwhelming, or?
And last night we were full. Last night it was really insane. It's crazy.
What is the noise coming back?
I prefer intimacy. Well, it's a little boomy, but it's not as bad as you would think. I think they did a great job. Our sound team is pretty great, handpicked by Andrew Lloyd Webber. So they come in and they really and there's also a lot of speakers built into the stage, which was something they did in a more recent years. They built speakers into the set, into the floor. That wasn't in the original, but they kind of upgraded. And so we get a lot of sound there, but we do get back here more than we've gotten back anywhere else. It's
And what
interesting.
are I hear that in Taiwan in particular that you will have a lot of fans waiting. Maybe more typically than in America, you will have throngs of fans waiting outside, waiting for
Yeah.
the actors to come out of the theater.
In Asian countries, pretty much standard, we would have a lot of people waiting. Not Singapore so much, but we started in Manila, excuse me, and we had a lot of people there, especially towards the end of the run. We got a lot of gifts. Korea was different. I had played Korea before. I was in Jekyll and Hyde in Korea, and
Oh, nice.
the fans were great, like crazy. We got gifts every day. I mean, like gifts, not just like candy or whatever. But because of COVID, we didn't get to experience that because there was no stage door in Korea. They did away with it.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they kept, our company managers were awesome, and they were, we were not allowed to give tours. We were not allowed to, basically fans couldn't get anywhere near us. When we came off, we went and got on a bus just because it limits the exposure or whatever. But here last night, I came out and there were people waiting, like hundreds of people.
Yeah.
But they're not really waiting for me. They're waiting for the Phantom and Christine. So it's like, they just wave. And then of course, when our Phantom's name's Jonathan Rocksmith, when Jonathan comes out, you can hear them like screaming, and they, and last night was our first night. So there was a lot of VIPs and stuff like that last night.
Awesome.
So.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with Chelsea Opera, since that's why we're together.
I had to really think because my memory's terrible, and it was a long time ago. I can't even remember the exact the date. I remember auditioning, actually, clear as a bell, and I can't remember the name of the church where we auditioned, which was not in Chelsea. We performed in Chelsea, but
it was probably Christ and St. Stephen's
Paul
Church.
and Change. Yeah. And I was so young. I think it was maybe a year or two after I moved to New York. At that time, I was singing full lyric stuff, and they asked me to cover. I covered Canio and Pagliacci, and then I think that's it. I think. I'm trying to remember who did Toridu. I can't remember. But I think I was maybe 24, 25. So it was like one of my first experiences in New York. And then later on, I did a lot of concerts. I did several concerts. And then I did Don Ottavio later on. Kind of in the middle of living in New York when I first got there. I got with my managers, and then they kind of said, we think you should do more bel canto work. And so I kind of switched to singing pretty much only bel canto. And so then I did Don Ottavio in Chelsea. So I remember it fondly. I made some great friends. I ended up singing with Lee. We did a Johnny Skiki with a different company, because at that time in New York, I don't know how it is now, but there were so many smaller opera companies, and they all helped each other out. And, like they would someone would recommend someone for something else. And it was kind of exciting when you were a young singer. You would go you would be singing shows in New York. I mean, it was hard because, you weren't making a ton of money or anything, but the experience was like, I mean, and still to this day, that's the only time I've sung Don Ottavio.
Really?
So
it's a difficult role and beautiful music.
Yeah.
Did you get to keep both the arias?
Yes, I did actually. They just asked me if I wanted to. That we were double cast, and they asked us if we wanted to keep them, and I think we both sang both. So I loved it. So I loved working with them. And I remember certain things.
Anecdotes or anything like that? Do you have any anecdotes about Chelsea?
Yeah.
From those performances?
I remember there was one scene where we, at the church, she said, because we did it at that church in Chelsea, which I can't remember the name of. They said, so sit here, And that church had radiator boxes that looked like benches, actually, on,
Yeah.
you know, and they really converted it to, it looked like a set, and it was a really nice big church. I remember my managers coming and saying, wow, they really transformed the place. But I remember sitting there and I started saying, it's awfully warm here. And then it was like a few minutes before I realized that the radiator was on and I was sitting on like heat, you know. And, you know, Don Ottavio does a lot of waiting around.
Yeah,
so,
he does.
like, you know,
yeah, he does.
the nonsense like going on. He's just sitting there and he has to say, oh, respiro. And like, you know, she has like 15 pages and then he says, ah, you know, so like I was sitting there listening and I was thinking, it's really hot in here. And I just remember so clearly that it just, and I made actually ended up being one of my closest New York friends in that production. A girl named Amelia was in the ensemble, and I remember they had statues, like when the Commendatore came in at the end, they were like living statues. So they were frozen, and you thought they were statues, and they moved to come and sort of drag Don Ottavio away. And she was one of the statues, and I can see her clearly. She's this beautiful girl, looks like Jennifer Gardner, and I can just remember that's where I met her, and still to this day, she's one of my good friends. So, yeah.
Well, that is a nice story.
You know, little
Chelsea Opera. You have a lasting friendship. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
she's great.
Since
not in the business anymore.
Yeah. In between your time with Chelsea Opera and the tour of Phantom that you'll be completing, are there any other performing opportunities that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, you know, I think that working with Chelsea really got my name out there in New York. And I ended up covering at the Met, not maybe a year or two after that. So it was like an invaluable like lesson for me. I've really tried in my career to do opera and musical theater at the same time because I kind of bucked against this establishment idea that we have to choose one or the other. And we just try to be a musician and be flexible. And in this day and age, you kind of have to, as a singer, you have to be able to do kind of everything, you know. And I think I'm the last of the old guard of people that were told in school, well, you can't do musicals because it's not a valid art form. And I don't think they do that anymore because they can't. You know, I mean, it's very hard to make a living as an opera singer now. You know, some of my closest friends sing at the Met and they struggle. So, you know, it's really hard. But singing at Chelsea was great because it got my name out there in New York, and I ended up doing several things. I did a recording not long after that kind of helped me. I was an understudy on a recording, and the guy got sick, and I ended up doing a recording.
Great.
I didn't know until the day of.
Good for you.
Yeah, and he's a great guy. Eric Fennell is his name. He's a great guy, really talented. He just got sick. And so it was those, I would say it was one of the 4 or 5 companies that was very instrumental in kind of starting my career. And then because Chelsea Opera has a good reputation, everybody knew they did great shows because they didn't really hire bad singers. Like there were no bad singers. And the truth is in New York City, you know, there's so many singers.
Yeah.
And then there were so many singers that, you know, you had to really get out there and do the work. It's hard because you have to work during the day at a day job, and then you have to sing. You have to get off and go to a rehearsal, and you're there until 10 or whatever, 10 or 11, and then you have to get up again 7 the next morning, and or you have to be like independently wealthy, which nobody is anymore. You know, so it's like, but it's. It was very helpful, and I, you know, my career has been on such a whirlwind, and I'm so lucky to have not worked for. I mean, I may go 3 months here and there and not work, but I've been so lucky to have consistent work, and there's a lot of people who don't, because the arts are suffering. So if you want to donate money to help the arts, that would be awesome, audience.
Like Chelsea Opera would be good for people.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Chelsea Opera, Bronx Opera. I did several shows at the Bronx, and those places really helped me learn my craft of how to learn a role. You know, you go to school and they tell you how, and then you go to the real world and you learn. You have to learn how. You know what I mean? Like, you learn your music, you learn, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I lived in Baltimore for a while. I lived in Philadelphia. I've kind of lived all over. And like I said, on this tour, I've gotten to go to, you know, this is my 7th country that I'm in currently. It's things I never thought I'd get to do. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy. Awesome. It's pretty good. Yeah.
And I guess now that you mentioned how difficult it is for people in the arts right now, not just the arts in general, but really performers in the arts who've watched their livelihood disappear over the past year. How have things changed, even though you've been working? How have things changed on your end during the pandemic?
Well, I mean, everything is a lot harder. It's you know, everything takes a lot longer. I mean, I'm here and I've been in Taipei this is the end of my 3rd week, and we only have 2.5 more weeks to go in this city, and I was in quarantine for 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's a lot of mental health things because you're alone. You know, you're alone a lot. Stuff like that. Also, I'm not going back to New York, which I would be my normal place that I would go back to. I'm going back to Tennessee, where my parents are, because there's no real jobs for me to have. I mean, there's no reason for me to find a new apartment in New York City if there are no auditions. I mean, you know, SVU is still filming. I actually got a thing from my agents about SVU, but I'm not going to be there. But there's really
that's so good.
Yeah. You're hard pressed to find an actor or like musical theater person in New York City who's not been on SVU or, you know, been in for it. Would have been like my 3rd time going in.
Right.
But they you know, I'm going back to Tennessee, so I had to kind of get a different game plan. I'm lucky because I'm from a smaller town, about 35,000 people. I'm kind of well known because, you know, there's not that many people who move to the big city. And so I'm not even there. And I was able to set up I currently have 21 students signed up for my studio. So I'm
well done.
I'm more, you know, but like, you got to do what you got to do. And because I'm in the union and stuff, it's hard for me to sing in smaller places and for this time, you know. So I'm from near Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area. So that's like a very touristy, there's lots of shows. It's a lot like Branson, you know, but I'm not allowed to sing. So you have to really, I think everybody has to be flexible about what they do. You know, I mean, my best friend is Audrey Luna. I don't know if that name. She's sung at the Met a lot, and she sang the highest note ever at the Met. And, you know, she sings all over the world. And right now she can't, you know. And so I felt so lucky that I've been able to be in countries that handled it better than what has happened in the States. I mean, Korea handled it quite well, you know, and so I felt safe while I was there. It's just got to think in different paths. You got to do different things, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say that you mentioned that artists right now have to be flexible. Would that be your advice to fellow artists during this time?
Yeah. I mean, I think we always have to be flexible. I think one thing, when I was leaving school, I went to the University of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and Barbara Hahn said, what do you think is, to me, when I had my oral exams, what do you think is the most important thing an opera singer? What are the most important things a modern opera singer should take away? And I said, I gave different examples of this and that, and she said, no, that you're not going to be rich. And she said that you have to be willing to compromise if you want to create art. And it's so true. And I've held that like with me. Like if I want to do, the projects that I want to do, then I have to be willing to do them and not make a lot of money. And that stinks, but it's modern. That's the way it is. We're not in that age where Pavarotti was making millions of dollars. Even Renee Fleming doesn't make millions and millions of dollars. She does, but she's one of very few that makes.
Yeah, I imagine between her and probably Netrebko, they're probably pulling down the most out of.
And they only do and really Renee doesn't do. She does concerts.
Right.
Like that's So you have to be willing to be flexible. Do cabarets.
Yeah,
smaller spaces.
Yeah.
I sing all types of. When I do a cabaret, I'll do it. Maybe I even do an opera aria. I'm doing a fundraiser for Boys and Girls Club of America when I get home, and it's Christmas. But then they've asked me to sing stuff from Phantom, and then they've asked me to sing, a few like, we would like to hear you sing an opera aria or two. So it's like you have to be really let yourself, sing different materials. That's what I would say, and be flexible about it. And they'll say, well, I'm only going to sing, operas written between this time and this time. I think those days have kind of passed. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So aside from the stress of the pandemic and the tour that you're currently finishing up, what else is going on outside of both of these things for you? Maybe there's plans that for the future aside from going back to Tennessee.
Yeah. The plan is once the vaccine goes through, I will go back to New York, and hopefully get a show or do some operas. I'm lucky I was able to save while I've been on this tour, so I've saved a pretty good amount of money. But it's who knows? Isn't that the rub of our business? Is like who knows what's going to happen? And it's scary. It's scary. It's been scary for the 20 years that I've been in the business. You don't really know what's going to happen. But I'm excited to spend some time with my mom. Had a heart attack this year, so I'm really excited to just be with her until she bothers me to death. So until she gets on my nerves, and But right now, I'm very excited to hang out with her. I just got a new puppy that's waiting on me.
Oh, nice.
A few years ago, my dogs, I had two dogs, both whom I had had for a very long time. Luciano, I had him for 16 years. They passed away, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited to, it's been a few years since I've had a dog. I'm ready to spend a little time with them. I have a studio to get together, and I've rented a space, but I have to, hang up pictures and this and that and the other. So I'm excited to and I haven't lived in Tennessee for an extended period of time, and since 2001. So it's like it's going to be interesting, I think. But I may get tired of it, and hopefully, Atlanta is kind of the new Hollywood. So there's a lot of TV, movies, commercials, and things that are happening in Atlanta.
Yeah, and
so I'm hoping to kind of get onto that. Yeah, Tyler Perry just opened up a new.
The state of Georgia is very popular right now for filming in general. Yeah.
The weather makes it better, easier, and I've heard that in a few more years it's going to be even more. There's going to be even more filmed there. So Tyler Perry just opened up a brand new movie studio there.
Oh, I heard about this. Yeah.
I think there's like 4 studios
Right.
area.
It's a big deal.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good drive from where I'm from. It's about 4 hours from where I'm from, but I have friends there that will house me locally. So I'm going to try to do some things down there. We'll see if that happens.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
look, our time together is almost done. So
All right.
since we are almost done, this is called Hot Tea and High Seas with Chelsea
Oh,
Opera.
Lord.
So I'm just wondering if you would like to end this interview on a high note.
All right. I will try. It is 10 a.m. here, and hopefully my neighbors won't kill me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Luke Grooms. Thank you so much for being with us and chatting with me, Garrett Heater, producing artistic director of Chelsea Opera. This has been Hot Tea and High Seas with Chelsea Opera. Thank you, everybody. See you in the next interview.
Bye. Thank you.